Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the country. Just want to thank everybody for joining today's session. I'm Scott Fiaschetti, and I'm here with Brian Schopper, as always. And we also will be are joined by today with Luke Barnwell, who is a member of the Geopath team. Some of you may have been interacting with him in Geek Out and some of the other areas that we support everybody with. He's here in the background helping out with questions and things like that, but I just wanted to introduce him and welcome him to the out of home office hours team. I know I'm always here with Brian, but I just wanted to give Luke a shout out. So obviously this is one of our Insight Suite refreshers. We do these a few times a year, and we just found, our members reach out and ask us to do these, and there's always a lot of new members coming in, and it's always good to have a refresher for even those of you that are often using the tool. I see some familiar names on the session already, but I like to think about these types of sessions as a supplement to the Learning Lab and to the user guides we have. And it's always nice to probably hear some of these things live and to be able to ask questions live. And also, by the way, too, if you or your team want a custom training, feel free to reach out to us at geekout@geopath.org. We're always happy to set up specific trainings for teams, and I think there's a lot of value in those as well. But just to move on to the agenda. So thank you to all of those of you who submitted questions. We really appreciate that. And hopefully you see some of your questions reflected in the agenda itself. And there's one or two questions that we may have to reach out to the person directly, but just for the most part, hopefully we've been able to cover all the questions that came in. So again, thank you for that. And hopefully this makes it more of a custom guided session so that everybody can get what they need out of this session. But basically, overall, we want to do a quick overview of some of the key modules of the Insight Suite. So the Explore module and the Workspace module, highlight some of the new features and functionality updates that have been implemented over the last handful of months, and then walk through a specific scenario or two with step-by-step kind of instructions on how do you create a plan, how do you pull reach and frequency metrics. I know that's always something that we get a lot of questions on, and even had some questions in the beforehand that came through like that. Also, this is an area we don't always spend a lot of time on in these sessions, but just really refreshing on how to use the mapping capabilities of the tool. So a little bit on that. And then how do you create plans using mixed media classes? So specifically, we have scheduled fleet and transit station media that are new in the last handful of months. So how do you work with some of these different media classes and create a custom plan that has a mix of different classes? So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Brian, who's going to drive the rest of the session, and I'll probably jump in with questions here and there. So again, feel free to ask questions throughout, post them in the Q&A widget, and we'll try to get them asked in kind of in the moment as much as we can. And if not, we'll try to catch up with some of the questions near the end as well. So I'm going to stop sharing and let Brian share his screen, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Scott. So I'm gonna get my screen shared here. All right, that should be all set. And let me just get my Zoom window all set up here. Awesome. So yeah, thank you all for joining today. Like Scott said, it's been a little bit since we've done one of these sessions. So we just kind of wanted to go through, if you've done a walkthrough with me or anyone on the Geopath team, some of this may be familiar. I saw some names in the attendance today that were new names to me. So some of this might be entirely new. And some of the things I want to cover right up front, especially, are about the 2023 data release. So some of that we covered in webinars in the earlier part of the year, but just a light refresher. I think it's some useful stuff to just be able to know where it is and how to access it, and just some things that you can use to speak about it, as you get questions from your own clients. So I want to start here in the Explore module and just go through some of the kind of overview changes that have happened with the release of the 2023 forecast. So for just a bit of a refresher, the 2023 forecast was first released the end of February this year. So it was February 27th. And there have been a couple subsequent updates with new data and slight tweaks to things here or there, but this has been available since just around the end of February. If you are in the Explore module, by default, you should see data source 2023 here. If you do want to switch to a different data source, so we have our previous data source, the 2021-06 or 2021 mid-year. If you do want to switch to that and access some of the audiences that are there, you can do that. And I should mention, there are a handful of audiences that are available in the previous data set that are not in the current data set. So if you want to go and explore and use some of those audiences, you can switch this way. And I would make a note, just if you're going to use a data vintage that's not the most recent one, it is a good practice either way. When disclosing or when sharing data with your clients or sending numbers along, just be sure to disclose which data year you're using, so it's extra clear for everyone. But so that's a way you can switch your audiences here. For the most part, the functionality of the tool here is very much the same between the two different data sources. A couple things have changed that I just want to highlight before we get into an example or anything like that. So in the filter inventory tab, again, for the most part, a lot of these filters are working the exact same way. So one of the things that I wanted to show was this operators filter. So this looks a little bit different in the 2023 data set than it did in the previous one. And I just want to explain a little bit about what these two classifications are, basically. So you'll notice here under operators, we now have organizations and division name. Generally speaking, organizations, you can think of it like the operators filter as it used to exist. So you can see kind of the larger level of the operator name here, like the Lamar Outfront Intersection, the MTA itself here as an organization. And these are good if you're trying to filter for entire groups of inventory owned by or operated by a single operator. And where that differs from division name, you'll notice that this is specific to, in a lot of cases, scheduled fleet inventory. This is really useful for selecting specific transit lines within that fleet. But what another thing you'll notice here, so I believe this should pop up if I do this. So you'll see intersection operates New Jersey Transit's inventory. But for example, if I just wanted to search New Jersey, the division name is also a really nice way to kind of segment the inventory a little bit smaller. So like if you wanted to look at Outfront's New Jersey inventory or Interstate Outdoors New Jersey inventory. So this is a nice way to separate by not only divisions within transit authorities, but divisions within the overall operator's inventory. So it's just kind of an easy way to get a little bit more specific with the organization there. A couple other things that are really useful in here, and again, some of this, maybe all of this will be a refresher to people here, but within this median placement filter, there are a lot of really useful ways that you can use you can use a lot of different ways in here to filter your inventory down to smaller sets. One thing I wanted to point out is this media class filter. So this is a really easy way to select between roadside inventory, so traditional, bulletins, billboard style, traditional roadside here. Place-based would be anything in venue. So I'm drawing a blank. There's so many different media types here, but place-based and then scheduled fleet, which would be bus exterior advertising. So yes, Scott, go ahead.
No, and just one thing too to know with place-based, it's obviously like in venue measurement, like you said, like airports as well as restaurants, et cetera, but also that's where you would find transit station media as well.
Yes, yep, that's a great point. So if you're trying to make a plan that is scheduled fleet, so bus exterior advertising, but also maybe you're looking to include in your plan things that are within a specific station, you would use a combination of these two different media classes. And one of the examples I'm going to do a little bit later on shows how you can mix some of these media classes into a single plan. You don't need to do them separately. You can make a plan that integrates multiple. But I wanted to point this out because the media class filter is especially useful when we go and we run a market plan a little while later. This is really useful when you're doing your media selections. So just something to be aware of and know what these filters do. So let me start getting into an example here, and this will kind of address some of the questions that we got along the way, and I'll work them in here. And again, as we're going through, if people have additional questions as well, please feel free to send those in. So the example today I'm going to be doing, I'm going to take a look in the Kansas City DMA. I don't think I've ever done an example here, but let's do Kansas City DMA. And so I want to actually, let me back up before I even get to this. Just since we're doing a bit of an overview, this is a helpful thing to be able to understand. So in this define target tab, I can select my audience and set my market here. And I can also change the number of delivery weeks that I'm looking at. So by default, this is showing 1, but let's say you're always working in 4 weeks. You can set this to 4 as your default. The one thing I want to make mention of, this assign market function is capable of doing 2 things at once. It's really doing 2 things. And it's, in a way, it's slightly counterintuitive. I think it's doing something different than what you might initially think it's doing. So I think it's helpful to be able to understand what this does and what you can do with this. So the assign market function, in essence, is actually setting my audience base before it's doing anything else. So for example, using Kansas City, by selecting this Kansas City DMA here, I'm going to hit add. And you'll notice this pop-up appears right here. This is effectively asking me if I want to do the other portion that this function can do. So like I said, the first portion of what the assign market does is this actually sets my audience base. Using my Kansas City DMA here, for example, by assigning my market as this DMA, I'm constricting my audience base to just those that live within the Kansas City DMA. So my audience base, my entire population of people, is now constrained to just this market. And you'll notice that there's this pop-up here when you go and you add virtually any audience with the assign market function. And basically what this pop-up is doing is this is just asking if you'd also like to take that market designation and apply it to your inventory as a filter. And that's kind of what I mean by it's a little counterintuitive. I think naturally you might assume that the first thing this will do is filter inventory to whatever your geography is. That's actually kind of the second function of this. So again, the core thing of what this is doing is constraining your audience base. The secondary function, you can also apply that market to your inventory and use that as a filter there. And just for the sake of example, you don't have to hit yes to this. You could set the audience of one market as your audience base and then look at inventory from a different market. Like if you were trying to get a little bit more complex out of market, in market audiences, like if you were trying to look at, I don't know, those that were from the Boston market, but were seeing Boston market, those that were seeing inventory in New York, but lived in Boston. So you could do that kind of thing if you were to say no here and set them to different things. But just in a general sense, when I'm applying my market here, I say yes to this almost every single time, because in most instances, I want to set my audience base and my inventory filter to the same market. So just wanted to talk that through. I think that's a helpful thing to be able to understand. And it kind of dictates your understanding of the rest of the tools you go through. One quick thing I'm going to do before I keep going, and this is just a personal preference thing with this sort of map here, but I always like to, it kind of did it outside the market here, but I always like to go to this layers and display options tab. And then I like to turn off this show unselected inventory option. And you won't see this yet, but as I continue to filter this down and remove inventory, it's not going to leave them as grayed out dots on my map. It'll just clear them away. It makes it a little bit easier. And that'll kind of segue me towards one of the questions that we got, which was about mapping capabilities and making custom maps. So just wanted to get the DMA and the market situation all set up. So in this example, I'm going to be taking a look at some fleet exterior advertising. So bus exterior advertising is like I said, that is found within under media class. If I wanted to look at just the scheduled fleet, you can see fleet exterior scheduled, and there are 11,000 spots. I'm going to hit apply here. So that's going to filter out everything. It'll actually just see the few garages here. When you're in the Explore module, when you're dealing with scheduled fleet inventory, the way that it represents on the map is actually just showing where the garages that those buses operate from, where those are found. So let me open this back up a little bit so you can see. So one of the other things, oh, and you know what, before I keep going as well, no, you know what, let me start here before I even go any further with the media selection. So one of the things that I find most useful about looking at scheduled fleet in the Explore module is the ability to sort of, I guess, do a little bit of research within the tool here before you go and you build plans around specific inventory. And what I mean by that is you'll see once I open up this table, so I can do view as table, or if you do this up arrow in the bottom left corner, there's some really valuable information that you can get about the fleet advertising in the Insights suite. Some of this you might need to add additional columns, make it a little bit easier on yourself. But there are some key things here I just want to highlight as we go through before I even continue with this example. Like I said, certain columns you might want to add, and I'm going to just point out a few here that are useful, like if you're going to be doing anything with scheduled fleet, just some things that I think will be helpful here. So most importantly, the few that I want to highlight. So place name. If you've ever dealt with place-based media in the Insight Suite, you know that place name will tell you the actual name of the venue where that inventory is. And the same is true if you're dealing with station interior media. Like say you're looking for displays on a platform in a train station, the place name would show you the name of the train station. When you're dealing with scheduled fleet exterior, so the bus exterior advertising, the place name actually shows you what garage those buses are coming out of. So that's a really useful thing if you want to be able to plan by garage. It's really nice and useful to be able to know, what's the name of the garage so I can reference that later. And that's done in the place name filter elsewhere. So the media name filter, you may see this elsewhere as operator media name. Here it's just showing as media name, but this shows the actual specific names of the inventory. So full wrap, full side, con, king, queen, all those different ones, headlight, taillight. Those are all found in media name. Another one that I think is really useful is placement type. So this will actually show you if it's a driver's side or a passenger side. So you can see this is a half side on the driver's side. This is a full side on the passenger side. And then the other key thing that I think is useful to add here is the units selected in the max units column. And this kind of brings me to my point that I was going to make about Geopath spot IDs when you're dealing with scheduled fleet inventory. So scheduled fleets spot IDs function a bit differently than roadside or place-based inventories IDs. Essentially, each Geopath spot ID is actually a representation, or if that ID represents a type of ad. So for example, just looking at this top one, this half side coming out of the Illinois garage, and it's on the driver's side. So this spot ID ending in 471, this represents all the ads of this specific type from this garage. And you can see using this unit selected in max units, I can see I have 53 of that type of ad in this garage in general. You may notice though, that there are other half sides from this garage. They may be the passenger side as opposed to this one that's the driver's side. Really, any variation in the garage itself, driver's side, passenger side, the length of the bus, the make model of the bus in general, the ad type, any combination or any variation in any of those would result in a different spot ID. So again, it's a bit different than the way that roadside is handled. And that's why I wanted to take a couple minutes to walk through this, because I think it's helpful to be able to understand all this before you go and you build plans on this. Like if I was trying to build an inventory plan around some of this scheduled fleet inventory, I would want to know specifically what type of ad I'm selecting and adding. So using the spot list view and the table view in Explore is a really nice way to sort of gather some information first. Like I can know, okay, these few IDs are useful, or I want to look for stuff from this garage, or that's, half side, driver's side. All of that to say, again, the Geopath spot IDs for scheduled fleet exterior represent all of the ads of that type. So there are 53 of this type of ad, 141 of this type of ad. And you'll see later on, when you're adding one of these to an inventory plan, I can just add the ID of one of these, and then it'll let me select a number of units later. So you'll see all that come together in a little while, but just some things I wanted to talk through here before we really put this together. For the sake of my example, I'm going to use Kings. And I know there are a few different ones in this market here. The ones I was actually looking at just for the sake of example were these ones from this Illinois garage. So these Kings from the Illinois garage, their driver's side, and there are 53 of them. They may even be the same 53 buses. Who knows? It might be the same 53 buses, just different ads, but I'm going to be using that King. And I wrote down the number here, the Geopath ID, so I have it set aside. But again, all of that's really useful information to do ahead of time. I'm just going to go over to the workspace module and show you how to set up show you how to set up a market plan for scheduled fleet. Functions very, very similarly to roadside. So when you are working in the workspace module, there are two different areas you can do your work in. Either way, you can do the same type of functions. It's really a matter of organization and structure. So this sandbox view, you can think of like one big folder with a bunch of different things in it, not necessarily structured. The projects view, I like to think of as a bunch of different folders, and then I've got a bunch of scenarios within all of them. And actually, this is a really nice thing a really nice newer feature that I wanted to highlight here. You'll notice, you may have seen this, and if you have done any walkthroughs with me in the last several months, you may have noticed or heard me say I filled up my sandbox, so I had to make these other sandbox filters or folders for myself. So I had sandbox 2, sandbox 3. What's really nice now is there is this bulk actions filter or bulk actions option now. So if you select all, or say you select multiple, it doesn't even have to be all of them. So you say you want to just select like these 5. I could then delete selected or move as a group. And this is something that didn't used to exist as a feature in here. So you would have to go manually and move them or delete them, which is why I just started making another like kind of junk folder for me to work in. If you want to move or archive or delete everything, you can now do that really easily. And you can increase the number of rows on your page and delete and move around. So just something to be aware of. It's a really useful feature. And I know people have been kind of asking about that type of thing. So just something to be cognizant of. So I'm going to hit add scenario. And there are 2 different types of plans that you can make in the workspace module. And you've been hearing me talk about them already, both market plan and inventory plan. Market plan is a really useful tool if you are looking to get a general sense of delivery for a certain quantity of or a certain quantity of inventory. This is really great if you have an audience delivery goal and a specific audience and a specific market and media type, and you want to get an understanding of, how many of X media am I going to need to reach my goal. This is really great for ballpark planning. One thing I want to make mention of, and you'll see this as we go through, the market plan itself actually, as it's compiling packages in your results, it prioritizes building around median metrics. And you've probably heard me talk about this kind of thing in the past. But one thing I want to make mention of is that the market plan does not necessarily prioritize or take into consideration geographic spread of the package around the market. So you may get a response from your market plan saying, I don't know, you need 25 bulletins to reach 25%, just an example. When you go and you look at, 25 specific bulletins with, specific IDs, and you choose their placements, there's a good chance that the metrics are going to be different for those 25 specific bulletins versus the 25 that you're getting out of market plan. And the metrics can tend to differ quite a bit when you make selections based on, proximity to, major highways or placements or availability, audience metrics. All of those things and all of those choices may make the package results differ a bit from the market plan, because again, the market plan is running median metrics. Scott, did you want to?
Yeah, no, I was just going to echo some of what you were saying, to be honest. Just that, I think oftentimes, and you say this in a lot of your trainings too, as well, is like the market plan gives you that general sense of broadly how many of a particular unit you can use to achieve you might need to achieve your goal, because it's using the median units to create that plan, right? Basically the average units. But you can probably be more efficient and achieve your goal with fewer units, because you're picking when you're starting to create a plan and cherry pick. It's really just to help get you to a general sense, a rough area, so you can start planning. But you can probably, as you're planning, be more efficient with depending on the specific inventory, the specific units you pick when you're creating an inventory plan. So, and I think people find that as well. This is a good market plan's a good guide. And then the inventory plan is where you really get down to the specific units to achieve your goals. Basically.
Yep, totally. Absolutely. So let me just go through and I'll basically mirror the kind of thing I was just doing in the Explore module. So I didn't apply an audience when we were over there. So let me take a second to talk through some of the different audiences here. I mentioned at the beginning that we've done some subsequent releases since the initial release in the end of February. And one of the biggest changes in those follow-up releases was the addition of additional audiences, specifically in the population category and the consumer profiles categories. So with the initial release, the first version of the release in February, we had it sort of constrained to some of the core, most popularly used demographics and audiences here. And based on feedback from our members, and thank you all for that. And again, as we go through, if you have additional audiences that you'd like to see, or there are things like that, you can definitely let us know. And it's always an iterative process like that. But we added additional audiences in batches. I think we've done 3 maybe two, I can't remember if it was two additional, three additional, but Scott, were you?
No, I was just gonna say, there's more than 700 audiences now
Perfect.
in the Insight Suite. Yep.
Great. So yeah, and a lot of those are, like I said, between the population category and the consumer profiles categories. In the population category, in a general sense, a lot of standard demographics, age, ethnicity, gender, household income, and you can make combinations in here. So just really quick, like if I chose, say, 18 to 34, and then an income, so say 75,000 plus, you can see this is the limit of this combination that I can do. But say I choose like a different audience. Let me do 75,000 plus, and I'll do 18 plus, but then I have additional options I can do here, like ethnicity, gender, race. So depending on what ones you choose, you'll see additional options up here to keep further cross-tabbing that. So this is really great if you have kind of standard demographics like this that you want to combine and want to use. The consumer profiles is full of more behavioral and spending habits. You can see a lot of these are, so I think the first category is alcohol. So that's why this list here starts with this alcohol stuff. But a lot of different things in here. A lot of, like I said, the most commonly requested and most commonly used different audiences within here. So I always like to recommend coming in and just doing a search. You can do kind of a keyword search or just see what happens. Just type in a couple words, see what audiences pop up. I'm always finding new ones in here that I didn't even know existed, and sometimes they're the perfect thing for whatever campaign you're working on. So it always helps to take a look. And then Prism Premier, all of the audience data here comes to us from Claritas. Within Claritas's data set, they leverage a bunch of different sources, but one of their products coming out of that is the Prism Premier segmentation. So basically, Claritas does everything down to the individual household level, and Prism Premier are different chunks of all of the households in the US. So every household split up into one of these different segments, and they're all grouped together by, different life stages and different behaviors and sort of socioeconomic things. So like you can think, young professionals with kids, retirees without kids, that kind of thing. And so these are really useful if you have more complex audience targets you're looking to go for. Just for the sake of our example today, I'm just going to do a super standard one. I'll do 21 plus. And you can see I have all these additional things I could add to it up here, but I'm just going to hit add selected and then apply. If you wanted to also do multiple, you'll notice this functions a little bit differently now. Like say I wanted to also add 18 and hit add selected. So this makes it easier to go and add a bunch of different audiences, and then you don't have to go, add it and go back and add it and go back. So you can add them all here and then apply them all at once. So again, I'm just going to do 21 plus.
Just as you're doing that, Brian,
Yeah.
there was a question that came in that I can jump in on just about, when you were showing how to combine the audiences, and I know
Yes.
that's something people have asked for a little bit of like, when will we be able to combine demos with consumer behaviors or demos with Prism segments? And it's definitely on our roadmap. We don't have a specific date, but we are looking at the end of this year to have that come out. So that's been the part of the plan. Hopefully it won't get changed with other things that come in, but that's what we're targeting by the end of the year to be able to do more customization of audience combination. So
yeah, and that's one of the nice things about Claritas's data and the way that they source their data. Because everything is down to the individual household level, theoretically, we can cross-tab any of these audiences, any of the ones that exist, because like if a household exists for both of those, we would have a record. Like if it's both, this demographic and this behavior, and there are these households that, meet both of those, we'd be able to know that. So it's really just a matter of, being able to put that out there for our members, but it's fully possible and fully on the timeline. I'm going to leave this open to all operators, but just wanted to show, again, organizations and divisions, just like I was showing in Explore. You'll notice all of these different buckets and filters, all of the menus here look the same in both Explore and the market plan here, or Workspace in general. So in my inventory selection, I mentioned a little bit earlier, media class is really important for when you're doing a selection in a market plan. And you'll see this because I'm just doing one media type for this plan, but my next example, I'm going to do a mix of two different media classes. So this will make a little bit more sense. But when I'm adding my media to a media plan or to a market plan, sorry, I like to use this media placement filter first. Under media class, I definitely recommend selecting one of these media class filters. Technically, you can run a market plan without this. However, there are certain things, like say, for example, I was coming in here to operator media name and I was doing like kiosk, if I could spell it. So, okay, in this market, there are not specific kiosks, but say, for example, just kiosk in name was the media type that I was using. There are instances where a kiosk might exist as both a roadside inventory unit and a place-based in-venue unit. The tool wouldn't know specifically which one you were looking for, so it would include both potentially. Or something like a two sheet could exist both in venue and outside. So for reasons like that, and just for extra clarity when you're setting up your plan, it's always the best practice to select media class. So in this case, I'm going to do fleet exterior scheduled. And then under operator media name, I'm just going to select King. And you'll see when I hit add selected, I can see both of my selections here, fleet exterior scheduled and King. If I were to just select fleet, if I were to deselect fleet exterior scheduled and just leave King and try to add it, you'll get this pop-up basically saying like, please add a media class filter. So just wanted to clarify that. So I'm going to click apply selections now. So you'll see fleet exterior King here. And basically the last thing I want to do, I just want to set this as a 4-week campaign. And for this one, I'm going to do a TRP goal of 100. So I'll just name this as well, TRP 100 and the city. You don't need to name this. You don't need to, like I said, just like I have it placed in my sandbox, I can put it anywhere, but I can also put it into a project now, or I could also move things later. So if you're looking to just make a plan, you don't need to worry about where it's organized right now. And again, because this is just one media type, that was very fast. I was going to say this should be pretty quick because it's very fast. Perfect. So for my setup here, it's saying I would need about 88 King advertisements in this 4-week period to reach my 100 TRP goal. That would get me about 14.5% of this audience in the DMA in that time frame. And you can see, again, because I'm looking at just one media type, the summary line up here and then the specific line to the media, they're going to show the same thing. But if I had multiple media types in here, like I will in my next example, you'd see the individual media type lines and then the summary for the package as a whole. And again, this is looking at median metrics. So when you're actually selecting different ones from different garages and that service different parts of the market, you may get a very different delivery from this when you have 88 spots. It might take you far fewer than 88 spots to reach this 100 TRP goal. Again, just worth considering that this is taking medians into account and not the geography of where these are. So this is really the extent of what I wanted to do in this first example, just show you how to set up a fleet exterior plan. It's really very similar to roadside when you're doing it this way. The process is almost exactly the same. And just like I can with roadside inventory, if you want to edit this a little bit, change this, say you wanted to see, what would it take to get me a 20% reach instead? And you can just hit the, oops, let me add that back in, it didn't get it. So you can always edit the reach percent, the number of spots, or the TRP itself, and then have it recalculate. Oh, it did get it. Okay, cool. So it would take about 136 spots to get to this 20% reach in the market. Or say I wanted to know, maybe I only wanted to buy 25 Kings. Roughly, what would that get me? And so you can go through here and just kind of fine tune this scenario a little bit and plug in different amounts. And keep in mind, if you have different media types in here as well, like if you have all other media types, they'll kind of work together to reach your goal. So if my goal was 100 TRPs and I was editing, they would still be trying to reach my 100 TRP goal, but and that'll make a little bit more sense once I'm showing an example with another media type as well. So this was the first example I wanted to show here. Fairly straightforward, just how to run a market plan for scheduled fleet. So let me hop back over to Explore. And basically the second example that I'm going to do is based on that same Kansas City bus example, but say I wanted to run a plan that had both posters and King advertisements like I was just doing. So how would I make a plan that mixes two different media classes and different kind of general media like that? So let me go back into here and I'm going to actually clear out my median placement filter so I can look at everything. So I'm just going to hit clear there. So this should bring in everything that's in the DMA again. Cool, perfect. And you know what? I didn't really talk through this while I was doing that other example. So let me just do a really quick run through of these kind of metrics, just very high level, so everyone has some talking points should they get asked. So I'm just going to apply 21 plus, so I have an audience here, and this will help me kind of illustrate the example that I'm trying to make. And you know what? Also, before I go into those numbers here, let me go back into filter inventory tab. And so in this median placement filter, again, I've talked about media class. I talked a little bit about operator media name, but this is really useful. Like if you're trying to find a specific media type by name, and I should say this, so the operator media name filter, this is full of the names that operators submit their inventory to us with when they audit them or when they have us audit. But this is also full of the names that you'll see in that buy and sell process pretty commonly. So like transit shelter, TSA, there aren't any in this market. So not a great example, but like no benches either, striking out. But like you can see all of these specific different media types like urban panels, Stingray Audio is one of the Windowscape. So there's all these very specific types of media that you can use the operator media name filter to search for. You can get to the same end using other filters, like the media type filter, for example, is based on the size of the frame. So if you wanted to filter based on size, you could do that. However, if you're not sure what you're looking for, something like panel or display is not super descriptive. Again, if you don't know what size that means or what you're looking for with that. So that's partly why I like to recommend and why I often use operator media name. But again, it's not a one size fits all. You can use a lot of different ways to get to the same results. All of that being said, I just wanted to use this to pull up posters. Okay, let's zoom in a little. Get some more results. So the one thing I wanted to quickly talk through before I keep going with this example is the actual summary metric list over here. So just something to be able to talk through. Again, if you get questions on, what are total impressions, what are target and market impressions, some of this may be complete review for some of you. I'll be quick. I think it's helpful either way. So what we're looking at in this top right corner, this is the collective metrics of all 702 of these spots in 1 week, because I have 1 week as my default. If this were 4 weeks, these would be showing 4-week metrics, but these are the collective metrics against my 21 plus audience who live within this DMA across 702 spots. So just keep all of those parameters in mind as I sort of talk through this. So total impressions, anytime you see total impressions in the Insights suite or when you're using Insights data, total impressions is person 0 plus. So on all 702 of these spots, in 1 week, there are 44 million impressions in general. So person 0 plus and from any market. So they could be from like this Topeka market, they could be from, Colombia and anywhere outside of this market. If they are interacting with and making impressions on any of these boards, they're counted in this total impression number of 44 million. Going one to the right now, looking at total in-market impressions, these are the 0 plus impressions of just those that live within our Kansas City market. And again, I use the DMA here, but if I were looking at I'm not sure if it's Kansas City County, I doubt it is, but say I was looking at the county where Kansas City is, my in-market would be reflective of county versus DMA or CBSA. It's reflective of whatever size of market you apply. And then finally, target in-market impressions is a combination of both my audience, so the person 0 plus, and my market of Kansas City. So these are the people. There are 30 million impressions on all of these spots in a week from those that are 21 plus and live within the DMA. So just wanted to talk through all that at a high level. Again, probably a refresh for a lot of people, but in case you get questions. So one of the quick things I wanted to do here, and this is just a nice, easy way to sort of point you in the right direction. Like if you're looking for inventory that is very efficient at reaching a particular audience, there are a couple ways that you can do this, but I'm really using this as kind of a means to get some units to use in my example. So I've got 702 here. That's quite a bit. So let's say I wanted to find the units that were maybe had the highest total impressions or highest target impressions. Or in my example that I'm going to use here, say I wanted to find the units that indexed most highly against my 21 plus audience. So I'm going to actually set this sort by dropdown to show me the composition index. And basically the sort by is going to take all of the spots in this filter, so all 702 of these, and reorder them based on whatever my metric is. So I did this based on index, so this is putting the highest indexing units to the top. If I were doing this based on total impressions or target impressions, it would sort it that way. And just again, as a quick refresh, index is a really useful metric for comparing something to the overall average. So an average of 100, or an index of 100 represents the average in the market. So if the average board in the market indexes at 100 against persons 21 plus, this board being 109 index, this is 9 index points, or 9 above that 100. So any number above or below the 100 is that percent above or below average. So this one at 109 is 9% above average at reaching our audience in this market. This one's also 109, 109, 109, 108. So you can see these go high to low for the target index here. So what I'm going to do is use this select dropdown, and I'm going to say, show me the top 25. And so you can see there's a few up in this cluster up here. There's some clustered down here, a few up here as well. And again, these are all based on composition index. If I were looking at a different sort by metric, like target impressions or even composition percentage, you'd probably see a slightly different, maybe not, but you'd probably see a slightly different relationship for just about any of these different metrics. And it can be a really interesting thing if you're trying to make some decisions like, well, yes, this one indexes most highly, but it has a pretty low target impression compared to this other one. Or, you know, just because something has a high index, it might not be the best board for whatever your campaign is. Or conversely, if something has a low index, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not ideal for your campaign. It might have a really high reach or frequency. So depending on what your campaign needs are, you might end up at different ends when you're making your selections here. Again, all of this is just kind of a vehicle for me to be able to select some units to use in my example. So let's say these 25 spots, these 25 posters are the ones that I want to use in my secondary example here. So I'm going to actually save these. If you go save as, you can actually download right from here. Like if you want to get just spot by spot impressions on whatever's in your filter, you can download to a CSV right from here. But I'm actually going to save this as an inventory set. So I'm going to call these posters example. And you can name your inventory sets anything you want. These are going to be set aside to your account. So when I hit save here, this group of 25 spots will be set aside to my account exactly like this. So I can then, say I come back tomorrow, I've got a new browser in front of me. I can just load up that inventory set and not do any of my filtering, just get right to that inventory. So say you're working, maybe there are packages that you often sell together, or there are, things you want to compare. It's nice to have things saved as an inventory set so you can then easily compare them or easily add them to different plans, which I'll do in a second. And so then the other thing that I wanted to do as well, let me just clear I'm going to clear my media selection here, because I wanted to also set aside very quickly. So I'm going to do both a market plan and an inventory plan with this configuration of posters and kings. But since I set aside that one king unit that I liked earlier, I'm going to add that to the same inventory set so I can have them all in one package together. So once this loads up,
just and as you're doing that, just a question came in just asking about, showing the display layer of like neighborhoods as a filtering criteria. So one of the things I was wondering if you could just point everyone to, like, if you wanted to filter at a zip code level for inventory, so where they could do that, and some of the other kind of customization areas within that location space. And then maybe,
totally.
I know we're starting to get tight on time, but even how you do it sometimes in the layers and display options, how you can show the different outlines of of where a geography is, like a DMA
Yes.
within a county within a DMA. Those kinds of things are always nice ways to illustrate some of the different layers of getting more granular as we're filtering inventory and looking at inventory.
Sure, yeah. So under the location filter in the filter inventory tab, if you go to filter by specific geography, you can actually filter for inventory within specific zip codes. So if you know you're looking at a neighborhood that's within a zip code, or you want to look at just that zip code, you can type in the zip code number here, the zip code itself, and then filter just to inventory in that market or in that zip code. I will say the smallest geography that you can report audience against. So like if you're looking for like reach percent of an audience within a geography, the smallest geography that you can use for audience delivery is county, but you can filter down to virtually any size using zip codes. Or the other thing that I wanted to show, if you use this custom shape filter, you can actually draw a custom polygon or set a custom radius on the map. So like say there's a neighborhood and you kind of know the general area where the neighborhood is, you could use the polygon filter to draw around that neighborhood and just look at the inventory in those bounds. Same thing with the custom radius. So you can just drop a point and then drag out and it'll make a big radius. And then you can filter that way as well. And Scott briefly mentioned as well, in the layers and display options tab, and if I have a little bit of time at the end, I'll go into this more, but there are a lot of customizable layers that you can add onto your map. One of them being under specific geography. Like if you go, I think I can do it for the city limits. Like if you do Kansas City, so I can see the CBSA here, the DMA, but if I go Kansas City, let's do the Missouri side. Why not? You know what? Let's split them. I'll do both. One's blue, one's purple. So you can actually add the geographic bounds of either a county, a city. I think you might be able to do zip code here, but you can see like this purple outline is the Missouri side of the city. There's the Kansas City side, much smaller actually. But you can use this as kind of a way to show, what's the general area that this certain thing is taking up. So just a little thing to be able to know about. I think it's a fun little. I don't get to talk about or use these features as much as I would like to. There's a lot of really fun stuff in here. So again, like if I have some time at the end, I'll definitely hop back into that. So really quick, I just want to find that one spot that I had. So I wrote down the number. So 753. Okay. So this should be the king, the bus king that I was looking at before. So I'll filter to that. And basically all I'm going to try to do is add this to my
I think, Brian, you put it in the operator ID.
Oh, yes, I did. You're right.
That is a good example while it's trying to find it. We often recommend using the Geopath spot ID because that is a unique identifier. There's only one of those spot ID, Geopath IDs that exist for every spot in our system. Sometimes operators they may number things differently, but one market may have one operator might be using number 105, but it may exist in other markets across the country. So when you filter, you may get multiple different spots than what you were expected. So just that's something to know. So we always just recommend using the spot ID, though you can use the operator ID if you know specifically what you're looking for.
Yep, that's a great point. So you'll notice too, because I'm dealing with this one spot ID, like I said, spot IDs for scheduled fleet work a little bit differently. I put in just that one spot ID, but again, there were those 53 spots of this type, and you can see total spots 53. So I'm actually going to then just take this same save as, and I'm going to hit add to existing inventory set. So this part's a little bit tricky. I found that once this loads up, so if you use like control find, wherever that is, if you use like control, there we go. So if I just do KC, I should be able to find it because it should be able to search through the whole list. Yeah, perfect. KC posters example, this is the one I was working on. This is the one I was testing with, so that's why they're so similar. But if you are looking for an existing inventory set that you want to add something to, using your browser's search will let you look through this whole list because there's not a search in there right now. But I found that that does help. So I've got now this bus ad, this king added to that same package of those 25 spots. So really quick, I'm just going to come back into here and as a market plan, show you how you can mix different media classes and media types here. So, and again, I know we're getting towards the top of the hour, so I will, most of this was just set up to get to this point, so I can now pretty easily show this. Okay, again, operators I'm going to leave open to the entire market, but you could constrain it to a specific operator or organization or division. So like I said, when you're adding inventory to your market plan, the media class filter is really important. First thing I'm going to do, again, scheduled fleet and king. So I'm going to hit add selected. You'll notice that the filters that you check stay checked even if you're after you hit add, which is nice if you're doing sort of subtle changes like, you know, this media type from this, you know, it can be helpful. But on the flip side of that, you do need to remember to go and deselect that so you're not adding some weird like Frankenstein mix of media here. So I deselected both of those. I'm going to hit now roadside. And again, in operator media name, I'm looking for posters. I'm going to hit add selected. So you can see my two different media types here, scheduled fleet exterior, king, and roadside posters. So I'm going to add selected. And this is a really nice example because there are only two media types I'm adding to this plan. And whatever you add to your plan as a market plan, your goal will be split evenly across those media types. So if I was doing 100 TRPs, it would be 50 for each of those media types. It would try to give me a delivery of 50 TRPs against each of these two media types. If you had 3 different media types here, it'd try to go like 33 each. So just keep in mind that this goal is going to be split evenly or as close to evenly as it can across whatever media you have added into here. So I'm gonna, oops, not 1200, 200. And I'll do 4 weeks again. So let me just double check and I'll just call this. So Kansas City market, 21 plus, scheduled fleet exterior kings, roadside posters, 204 weeks. Perfect. And I generate that. Wow. Maybe this is cached from when I was checking this earlier, but either way, very quick. So again, you can see it got me just above my 200 TRP goal because it had to, you know, round up to the next highest unit. So you can see, and this is actually funny. So to get to 100 TRPs, it was 88 kings. And again, because it's splitting my goal evenly, it's saying like, okay, 88 kings is 100 TRPs. So now we just add on those posters for the other 100 TRPs. And just like I could before, I can go in and make edits on any of these underlined highlighted things here. And because I didn't select a specific media type or a specific operator, and I just looked across the entire market, if I drop this down, I can then see who has inventory of what type in the market. So like the Kansas City Transportation Authority, so Outselling is the one operating that for them. But you can see it's listed here twice. It's really the same inventory. Same thing for posters. Like if I open this up, you can see the different operators that have posters in this market. So again, just wanted to show this. When you're setting up a plan with sort of varied media classes or media types, really the hardest part is just making sure you do the setup of the filters the right way. But the function is really the same, whether I'm adding like bulletins and posters or kings and posters, and maybe I wanted, you know, 2 sheets from a specific station. You can add a bunch of different things into a single market plan, and it can accommodate cross media class planning like this. So then the last thing I wanted to do was just show you like how do you run an inventory plan where you have scheduled fleet. And for that matter, I have a mix of scheduled fleet and posters. So I'm going to, again, just in the sandbox, doesn't matter if I can organize later if I want to. So I'm just going to mirror what we've been doing in here. So you'll see it's virtually, here, I'll show you again. It's virtually the same setup between market plan and inventory plans. And I'm just going to go through and select 21 plus. Add selected. So by default, it'll be persons 0+ here. You can remove that. Every single report that you're going to run as both a market plan or an inventory plan, you're always going to get a total impressions number. So you'll get that person 0+ impressions regardless. So you don't need to keep that as your audience here if you don't want to. So I'm going to add the Kansas City DMA. And you know what? I normally do this in a slightly different way, actually. Now that I'm going through this, I normally like to add my inventory first because it kind of satisfies 3 of 4 of these all at once. So by adding my inventory first, which I didn't do here, but adding your inventory first is really useful because the inventory is within a market in the system. The system knows like, okay, this inventory exists in Kansas City, so it'll auto assign the market for me. It knows it belongs to a specific operator. It's operated by a specific company, so you don't need to add operator either. So by doing inventory first, you can kind of bypass those a little bit. Again, I kind of forgot to do that, but and you can see here, just like in the other module, I can add inventory based on spot IDs. You can upload a CSV file if you've got like more complex like flight dates for your campaign, like certain spots go for certain dates, other ones go for other dates. You can actually upload a CSV file and it'll map it all out for you. But I'm going to pull in my inventory set that I just saved. So KC Posters example. And you'll see here, this is where it's going to ask me how do I apply my market here. So I'm going to do DMA and hit add as individual. I know that all this inventory was just within the Kansas City DMA. If it was spread across multiple DMAs, I have the option of doing them individually or adding them together. But since it was just one, it didn't really matter. And I could set this to specific dates if I wanted to put, specific calendar dates, but let's just say I'm doing a generic 4-week campaign, and then I can just hit generate. And so what this will do at first, because I did those 25 spots, or 25 posters, but because I've added the one spot of scheduled fleet, at first what this will do is run the plan with just one spot of that type in the plan. And what I can do after that, once this is finished running, which it looks like it is now, perfect. So let me open this up. So you can see, it's actually pretty handy. I put the king right up at the top here. So I've got all my individual posters here in my plan. And again, just like in the table view of the Explore module, using the units selected in the max units, I can actually change and kind of figure out how many of this type of spot I want in my plan. So say, for example, instead of 1, maybe we want, I don't know, 20. So I can just type in 20 in there. And then if I hit this recalculate measures button, this will then rerun this based on those 20 spots included, not just one of that spot type. So this is a really good way. Like if you have a specific type of scheduled fleet ad you're using, and I bought 5 of this type and 5 of this type, you can go in and put, 5 and 5 and re-update that so it runs based on just those, or on that quantity of spots instead.
Brian, as the plan is running,
Yeah.
before we leave the workspace, can you just go back into the market plan and just show if somebody wanted to run a market plan with a reach % goal, where they would find that to be able to do that?
Yeah, here, I'll just hit add. I'll just add a fresh one really quick. So you actually have to add an audience in order for the goals to pop up. So let me just add 1834 or something. Okay. So in the same place that I can set my TRP goal right here, if you do a drop down, you can do in-market target impressions, or you can plan on a reach %. So like say I want to do a 25% reach, you can do that, set up all the parameters the same way, and then this will plan based on that reach input. Okay. See, so that looks good, it looks finished. Here we go. So this is now showing this is, so this is 20 units selected versus just the 1. And so I have all of my summary level metrics up here. So this is the package level metrics. If you're looking for like package TRPs, package region frequency, you can get all of that up here. And then down here is all my spot by spot metrics for each individual spot. And so I can actually go and export this to either CSV or an Excel file. When I'm dealing with just like one market like this, the export to Excel or CSV is kind of the same thing. You get the same data either way. And at a one plan level like this, it really doesn't make a huge difference. If I were looking at, say, like 3 or 4 different plans here, like say I had 21 plus, 18 plus, and something else, and it was like plan 1A, 1B, 1C, I would definitely recommend using Excel export if you have multiple plans within this plan, because basically it'll give you everything in one Excel file in sort of a couple tabs, and you can compare everything really easily. If you were to export as a CSV using multiple, or if you had multiple plans and export to CSV, you'll get a zipped folder with a single CSV for each plan. So kind of a matter of preference, but it might make it a little bit easier or more difficult to kind of parse through the results, depending on how you go about it. Were there any other questions? I realize we're right at the top of the hour now. Were there any other questions that came in while we were going through?
No questions, but there was a comment. Can you go back to that media plan that you were working on? I just wanted to check to see, as you were working through the reach percent for when you changed the number of kings, were you running that on a? Gotcha. When you were adjusting the reach percent here, and did it update the reach percent? I guess somebody's making a comment that apologies. I just wanted to check that live. I know we probably shouldn't, but
I'll
when
double check that. I'm not positive. I didn't take a quick. I didn't notice before I updated it what the metrics were.
Okay. Yeah, we could follow up afterwards. So
Yeah.
probably at the top of the hour, we'll double check it and test it, and can follow up with that. But it should update all the metrics should update when you change the number of units and those things within the plan. The overall plan should adjust as well. So apologize for that. Yeah, and I know we're at the top of the hour, and if anybody wants to hang on a little bit, you could show a few of the mapping features.
Yeah, sure.
If there's a time, just for a couple of minutes, just so people are aware of this part of the tool. I know we don't always talk about it too much, but I think there are some interesting ways to create custom maps that you can export and share with your clients or with other members as well.
And that was actually one of the questions that we got in preparation for this, was like, can you talk about some of the mapping features? How can I go about sharing maps with my clients? There's not a current way to share like a live map to things in the Insight Suite, which would be a great feature. But there's not currently a way to like share a live interactive map. But what you can do, and I sort of did this a little bit before, there are a lot of really interesting things that you can add as layers to your map and then export and make custom options that way. So before I even do that, one of the first things that I like to do, like I only have like one garage showing here, but say I had a bunch of inventory here. If you go to select and you actually hit none, it'll clear everything off the map. And that was partly why I went layers and display options, don't show unselected inventory, clear all that, because like I wanted to be able to get to a truly blank map here. And I always find that's a nice, easy way to start. That way you're not like putting things over things, you're just using the base map. So in layers and display options, actually in display options, you have some options. Like if you wanted to change the look of the map here, this is not just for the sake of exporting a map. You can, like, if you want to change what your map looks like day-to-day usage wise, you can change it. Or you could also, there are certain things like the map controls or these sort of, you see these pill things at the bottom here, you can remove those as well, or like which ones you want. So you can customize what your view is, especially if you're trying to make like a clean map that doesn't show anything else. You can remove certain things. But say, for example, I wanted to show in my inventory sets, I have that example inventory set that I just saved. So like, let me add that. I can leave that as purple. But say I wanted to click on that, I could change it. You know what? Let's make it like a star and we'll leave it purple. So all of the posters and the one bus exterior ad, those will show up as purple stars on here. And say I wanted to go to specific geography and show like Kansas City. Let's show the Kansas City CVSA. Kansas City CVSA, and maybe we wanted to show, I don't know, let's show this, the outline of the state too, or the outline of the city, Kansas City, Missouri. So Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas. So this is the CVSA. Maybe I'll make that like a darker green, and then I'll make the map. It's the other map. I'll make it like a, I don't know, like a lightish blue. So you can just hit apply, and you can see like, oh, it's going to take a second for the inventory to come in itself. So, and this is always kind of a good example too. Like this is the size of the CVSA. versus the, there we go. So there's the inventory. Yeah, so this is the size of the city here on the Missouri side, but this is the size of the whole CBSA. And generally, when you're looking at like CBSA or DMA, like they're so much larger than people usually expect them to be. Like certain ones, especially in the large markets, are just gigantic. So it's always something to keep in mind when you're like, see, this is a good example actually. These are falling outside. These units that I had are falling outside the CBSA, but they were in the DMA when I was looking before. So just kind of an interesting thing that you can do here. You can actually, even before I get to the part of exporting, I can actually open up like a second map. If I hit this option, this plus button, I can have a dual map here, two totally independent maps of each other that I can, same way, just show like, okay, show me, I don't know, show me the Kansas side of Kansas City. So we'll do that on this side of the map and we can take a look. But you can add, opposing maps or like if you want to duplicate the same map settings on either and maybe put like one inventory set on one and one on the other and just kind of easily compare, you can do that too. But like you can make a lot of really nice custom things in here. I can also add, in addition to like an inventory set or a specific geography, if you search, this will search through the points of interest that we have like in the back end. So if you want to search for a specific place by name, you can add like a point of interest. So there's a lot that you can do here. And so at the end of this, if I wanted to export, I can actually go to actions and then print view. And if I hit print, this will then print out a PDF, or it'll sort of open up the print dialog of your browser here. But I can save this to a PDF and I can have these two right next to each other. Or if I close one of them, I can just have one sort of showing full screen. But it's a really nice way to be able to kind of get some additional value out of this. There's a lot of really fun mapping features in here. Again, I don't get to show them or talk about them a ton, but there's some really cool stuff that you can do with this. And it's kind of only limited by what you figure, what you try to do with it. So I don't know, a lot of really interesting stuff there. I don't know if there were any other questions. I know we're a couple minutes over, but.
So there is a question about when we're adding points of interest, can we add the latitude and longitudes? And actually at this point, we can't, yeah. And you, we're working towards being able to export some level of information with the points of interest, but right now you can't upload POIs in bulk or export them in bulk. You can work with them in this way. Brian's showing you right now. There's two questions that came in that I was trying to answer.
Yeah.
But Brian's showing you right now how you can work with our places module and look at points of interest and create, you can create a quick place set and use that and actually map those out and create a radius around those and look for inventory. So for example, if you wanted to know, how many units are within the 1 mile radius of a Starbucks or Two Guys pizzas that was on top, or airship bricks or any of those things there, you can create a point of interest place set and just do some custom mapping around it as well. But at this point, again, I know oftentimes you may get a request from the client like, hey, these are the 10 or 50 Burger Kings I'm really interested in. You'd have to create that yourself in the system for all the Burger Kings and just click on or click off the ones that you want.
Yeah, and so I really quick, just to show that how this works, I very quickly just grabbed that Two Guys Ribs and Pizza place. The map is still loading here to show the inventory across the DMA. There we go, it's coming in. But under the location tools, in the same place where I showed you can do that like polygon or your custom radius, you can actually go filter by place set and radius. And very, very quickly, I didn't talk through what I was doing, but I really quickly just saved that Two Guys, it'll have to come up in a second. So I saved that, Two Guys Pizza Ribs, whatever. I saved that as a place set to my account, just like how you can save an inventory set. So I saved that to my account and I want to see, show me all of the inventory within 3 miles of this place. So apply. I'm not actually sure where this is on the map. I didn't really. I don't know where it is. Still coming in maybe. 114, where is it? Is it not in Kansas City? Oh, you know what? This is just taking a long time to load.
That may
So
take
there's
us-
114 spots within 3 miles of it, wherever it actually is. It's just taking a little while to load up. But that's how you can go about using like a point of interest as a radius filter, or with a radius as a filter.
Right, cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else? Any other questions while we're on?
Yeah, another question just came in about creating quintile map for audiences by household income, things like that. That's a good
it.
question. We used to have more audiences in there that had like levels of quintiles where you could potentially do that, but if you want to quickly, Brian, just click over to, we do have the population mapping area, which again, it's going to be revamped and relaunched pretty soon, but this allows you to map some of the audiences and get a sense of kind of a heat map sense of intensity of the different profiles. It's not exactly what you're asking for, I don't believe, but it will give you some level of that, and you could map down to the county level. We're working towards getting down to the zip code level, so you get a sense within a market at different zip codes, where are these audiences most prevalent. So it could get you could, that's probably a way to back into what you're asking, hopefully. So Brian's just mapping all the counties across the US right now for drink Bud Light. 30 days, so you start to see the heat map of that change.
Culberson County, Texas, Todd County, South Dakota, Zibac County. Yeah, so this is kind of like, if I wanted to, really quick, since we're talking about this, like if I wanted to, just show all of the counties in Texas, like let me evaluate all of the counties in Texas for those that drink Bud Light. And again, this is just in this state as it is right now. There's a lot more that's going to be coming with this that'll make this even more useful. And this is using the older data set. This is not using 2023, but it's still helpful for showing this kind of thing. So this is the one right here, Culberson County. It's top in the country, but it's also top in Texas. So yeah, there's some really useful stuff you can do with this. If you have a custom request, you can always reach out to us at geekout@geopath.org. We have a couple other mapping and data programs that we can, make use of to make some audience maps, but there's a decent amount of limitation around that in the Insight suite right now.
All right. Well, thank you for everybody who stuck around. I know we went over, but questions were coming in, so it's good to just be able to answer them for you all. I'm going to put my video back on. And just to say thank you. And also just a couple of quick things just while we're here, that I will share my screen one more time and just say, if you do want to watch this afterwards, all of our webinars are available on our website. If you go to Geek Out tab and scroll down, all of our out of home office hours, the 6 most recent are a picture there by thumbnail, or you could click through and go to look at the entire playlist of our out of home office hours in our YouTube channel. Also, we have a lot of information available in our Geek Out library. These are recent screenshots of a lot of the materials we produced to support the launch of the 2023 release. So there's a ton of material there. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. Also, all of the infographics we've been releasing are there, and there's a lot of different information as well. So thank you for attending. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for the questions. Geekout@geopath.org, we've mentioned a couple times, for any follow-up questions or thoughts you might have. Something may come to you after we're done with the session. Feel free, just email us there, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So thank you thank you for joining. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, cheers. Bye.